Welcome to another episode of You Are the Masterpiece, where I'm bringing these amazing guests who are sharing with us. And we are actually learning together that we do not have to be perfect as long as we are taking the effort. And we are the work in progress and the masterpiece at the same time. And if this is the first time you are tuning in to these podcasts, welcome. My name is Irina Portnova, and I'm all about how do we actually put our thoughts together so we can create beautiful reality rather than creating something what's missing in our life. And that's exactly what I love to help people to connect to the magic of that everything starts with our thoughts, and that's how we are creating everything what we desire. And today I have a pleasure to welcome our guest, PeggyLee Hanson. PeggyLee, welcome.
Thank you, Irina.
Hey, it's so great to have you. So tell a little bit about yourself and what are your gifts that you are sharing in this world.
Uh, my name is PeggyLee Hanson, and I am an author, publisher, both award winning, and also an award winning speaker. And I have been in the business since about 2009, 2010. And I started the publishing business officially in 2014.
I love that. So tell a little bit about what was what was something that made you say, okay, this is where I want to go, this is my path, this is how I want to express myself in the world. I'm sure you have your story to share.
Yeah. In the beginning, in 2009, my world was turned upside down a little bit. I was released from my corporate job, and I decided to take a year and decide what I wanted to do. And I knew that I wanted to write, but I didn't know what to write. And I started searching on the internet about writing a book, and I came across someone named Donna Kozik. She is the original creator of Write a Book in a Weekend. And so I signed up with her in August. And lo and behold, I did write a book in a weekend. It wasn't War and Peace. It wasn't my huge manuscript, but it was just a small book. And then because I created that book and had it published, I was invited to come with her to be on her stage of her mastermind partner, Adam Urbanski. And so we talked about publishing the book and how easy it was. And that was really a great experience. It was the first time that I was put into an audience, that I had an audience in front of me of like 120 people. So my feet were held to the fire, for that experience. And
This
then
is,
go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to say this is so magical because, like, what was the time frame when, okay, you will let go of the work, then that idea came to you, okay, I want to write my book, and then you just enrolled with with someone who can actually guide you how to do that. What was the timing?
The timing was really fast.
Mhm.
It was I left my corporate job in March of 2006. I wrote the book in August or 2009, and in August of 2009, I wrote the book. By September, I had the book written.
Oh my goodness. And when did you already speak on the stage with that accomplishment? Same year?
And yeah, same year, when it was November of 2009.
Oh my God, this is incredible. I just want to pause before you continue the story because this is so juicy in terms of a lot of times people are just thinking, okay, I'm not ready. I don't know if this is the time for me. I love how your decision just came so quick and then you just went all in without knowing, okay, where it's going to take you, how it's all going to play out. I feel like your desire was really bigger than any fears that were coming at that time.
They absolutely were.
Mhm.
I said yes to everything.
I love that. And that's the attitude to grow, right? And that's the attitude to live the life on your terms. So, yeah, let's continue. Let's continue. So, you are there in front of 120 people, which is just a blessing, right? It's all about soaking in that beautiful energy.
Yeah, it was. And after I got off of the stage, a woman who was sitting in front of me, who I did not know at the time, and she turned around to me and she said, "I have a book." Well, I think I have a book. Well, my husband says I have a book, but I'm not sure if I have a book. And she told me her story. And her story was that she and her husband were grandparents, and then they had become parents again.
Mm.
Their daughter was in the army, and she got stationed over in Iraq for a time, Desert Storm, and so they had to raise their two granddaughters. The young woman's husband was not in the picture at the time, and so they asked mom and dad if they could take care of their girls. So she had everything written down in a journal, and she thought it might be worth something to write about someday, and she
Mhm.
did. So
Wow.
that was the time that I became a book writing coach.
I love that because today we have this conversation of 5 years that keep your story hidden. I just want to like really celebrate you. Just think about it, Peggy Lee. It's like you lost your job. People would probably saying, okay, I have to save money, but you said, okay, I want to invest into something that I truly believe in, right? You just answered your calling. You just listened to your heart. And then you said, okay, so I'm going all in. And you were able to write that book in, like the weekend, right? Like you said. And then you went and delivered on the stage. And look at that. You were just exposed to another audience. Like, let me just say how juicy it is. And you are sitting down and somebody comes to you and they want you to help them to write the book. Meantime, like a lot of times people have this imposter syndrome, or who am I, right? And you would think that you would pick that woman that was giving you coaching, but no, it was your client. And that's something that we want all to embrace because again, a lot of times we are talking ourselves out of something without listening to our inner voice because our inner voice already has the answers. And a lot of times we give the power to our logical mind.
That
I
is
love
right.
that. So let's continue. Yeah, let's continue.
So that was about writing a book and becoming a book coach, all within the same time period. And then a couple years later, I played around with the first book that I had written, and I put it on Kindle when Kindle was young and innocent and everything. and and I told a friend of mine that what I did, I was just wanting to see what it took to publish something on Kindle. And I said I put my one book, 50 something, on there. And she said, "I've got a book. Can you publish that for me on Kindle? I'll pay you."
Hmm.
Well, of course, I got paid for putting her book on Kindle.
That's so beautiful. Look at you. It's like It seems like one event led you to another one, and it's all about taking the steps. That's exactly what we want to kind of emphasize, right? Because if we are waiting for the entire path to be in front of us, we are never going to succeed.
Yeah, that's right. So, I took myself to the next level.
Mhm.
And it wasn't actually printing books, for but it was taking somebody else's book and formatting that. Now, I had experience prior to in my corporate world of being a desktop publisher. So I knew
Mm.
everything about graphics, Word, PDFs, and all that. And so I had that prior experience to help boost my career, per se.
I love that. It's like we are always led to what we are meant to do, right? All the skills that we are picking up on our journey actually are going to help us big time.
Yes,
All
they
right.
are.
So let us. So what happened later on, right? Because people started to come to you, and I love how everything is playing out. Even sometimes when people come to us and we never done something before, but because people are asking, that's a great trajectory for us to take and start actually saying yes to anything what people are asking without thinking, oh my God, I don't even know how to do it, or I've never done it before. Because if there is a demand, there will be always the way that we can deliver.
Yeah, absolutely, there is. Well, and then the next step in line is that I joined a group called Women's Prosperity Network. And I became a chapter leader for them. Sight unseen. I've not experienced them before. I just had a call with their founder, Nancy Matthews, one day, and I said, I'd like to be a chapter leader for you and get something started in my own area. And she took a chance on me, and I've been with them ever since, and that was in 2014.
I love Women Prosperity Network. I'm with them for, I believe, 3 to 4 years now, and I enjoy every moment that I'm there. And it's beautiful. That's exactly how we are connected, right? And then we went further on one of the ladies, Daddy Scott, who we are together taking some technical answers for our businesses. But this is a wonderful, wonderful process. So let's now focus on these 5 years that keep the story hidden, because again, we all know that there is something for us to share because our life becomes our story, and how a lot of times we are just not ready to do so, and what are actually these fears are.
Yeah. Um, and so let's see. Okay, so the first one is that, reason number one is you're afraid of what other people will think.
Mhm.
This may be the biggest one.
Totally.
You finally decide you're going to tell your story, and suddenly you can hear everybody's voices in your head. And so, what will my children think? What will my husband think? What will my sister say?
Mhm.
And what will people in my community think? And then there's the really big one. What will my family think? You haven't written the chapter yet, and you're already imagining Thanksgiving dinner.
Totally. Yeah. The fear is bigger than the desire.
Absolutely. So here's something that I tell the writers. Your story belongs to you. Other people may have been part of what happened, but when you experience what you felt, what you learned, and how it changed you, that doesn't mean that you write without compassion. You write, it means that you learn how to tell the truth. how to tell your truth, because it is your truth.
Mm, I love that. I love that. So we are going to come back in a very short time with just the commercial, and we continue to dive in deeper into other fears that stop us from writing the book. All right, and we are back into our You Are the Masterpiece episode where we are talking about the 5 fears that keep your story hidden. And our guest, PeggyLee Hanson, is actually guiding us through. All right, let's continue.
All right. So, reason number 2 is that you're afraid your story isn't important enough. I hear versions of this all the time. Who would want to read my story? I'm nobody special. Other people have gone through much worse. My life isn't interesting enough for a book. But here's the question I want you to consider. Who decided a story has to be extraordinary to matter? Sometimes the story that changes someone's life isn't extraordinary at all. It's familiar. Someone reads your words and thinks, oh my goodness, someone else felt this too. That moment matters. You don't have to climb Mount Everest, or you don't have to have built a multi-million-dollar company. You don't have to be famous. You raised a family. You started over after a divorce. You cared for an aging parent. Who can relate to that? You started over after divorce. Again, so many have started over after divorce. You lost someone. Or maybe you might have built a business. You made a mistake and learned something important because of it. Ordinary lives contain extraordinary wisdom. The
I
value of
love
your
that.
yeah, the
This is
value of your story isn't determined by how dramatic it sounds. Okay, go ahead, Irina.
I love, 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 Peggy Lee, what you shared because it's true. People are not like, for me, I'm not the person to be a fan of celebrities. I'm actually more connected to the real human beings. And when people are reading our stories, why they are reading? Because these stories really remind them of themselves. So we always have our readers based on how related our stories are to their stories. I love that. So, so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one reason why I've created Courage Under Siege. It's an anthology series I started back in 2017. I first published it in 2017. And it's because of being a Toastmaster in the leadership role, I heard so many stories that shouldn't have left this or shouldn't have stayed on the stage. They needed to be told elsewhere. And I thought, well, by this time I was already publishing, several people. And I thought, man, if there was just some way that I could make it so that these people and their stories could be heard, well, then it was like, boom, a big lightning bolt came. And he said, you're a publisher, you idiot. But I didn't want to call myself an idiot, but, and,
Mhm.
it's like it just dawned on me that I have the ability to share and the know-how how to share. So I'm starting on my 9th volume of Courage Under Siege, of telling those stories. 60 people have contributed over those 9 volumes of stories, and it's every day. Some of them have successful businesses, some don't. Some are just ordinary people who just wanted to share their story. So it is the ordinary lives that contain extraordinary wisdom.
Love that. Love that. So, what's the
All right.
next fear?
The next fear is you're afraid of reliving what happened. So this one really deserves tenderness. Some stories really hurt. You may have spent years putting an experience into a little box, placing a lid on it and saying, I'm done with that. Then someone says, you should write your story. You want me to open up that box? No, thank you. And that's understandable because writing can bring memories and emotions back to the surface. I don't believe you should force yourself through something simply because somebody else tells you that you need to write it. You have to decide to come to that conclusion. But you get to determine the pace. You get to determine to set the boundaries. You also get to determine what you are ready to expose. And sometimes you need a little more support beyond a writing coach, especially when an experience involves trauma or emotions that feel overwhelming. There's something else that I've witnessed throughout this whole process. Sometimes when you revisit an old story, you discover you're no longer the person who originally lived it. As time passes, it could have been years, it could have been decades. You're looking back with wisdom that you didn't have. You begin seeing not only what happened to you, but when you became who you became because you lived through it. That's a very different story.
Love that. Beautiful, beautiful.
All right, the next fear is that you are afraid that you're not a real writer. Oh, this one, this excuse.
Totally.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I'm not a writer. Well, and my response is, that's okay. Tell me the story. We'll worry about the writing later. We'll worry about telling the story later, but just talk to me, tell me what you've experienced. That's how, somewhere along the way, we've gotten the idea that authors sit down at the computers and beautiful sentences simply pour out of their fingertips. That's not how books happen, believe me. Books are developed. Their stories are shaped, thoughts are organized, sentences are rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. Editors edit. That's why there's a process. You don't have to know how to build the entire book before you begin. You just simply need somewhere to start. One experience, one lesson. And one thing you wish someone had told you 10 years ago, start there. You don't have to become a writer before you write your story. Sometimes you become the writer because you finally began telling it. It becomes legacy.
I love what you are sharing because, again, like my thing, how I was advancing in the business, because we all haven't been in business at one point, right? And you were sharing your story. And I remember when I decided to become the coach, I knew that if I hire somebody who can teach me, I can overcome anything. So I believe that's the biggest thing where people are missing the action when they feel like, okay, I cannot do it, because they always look for their own skills. But I always invite to have the guide, to have somebody who already skilled in whatever area they want to just try and see where it takes them. Hire the person who already has the experience, hire the person who already has the results. So this way you don't have to be afraid that it's not going to work out, that I'm not the writer, I do not know how, because how is going to come with the person who is actually taking your hand and walks you through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
And
with
that's
Courage
what
Under
you.
Siege, I provide my authors with a template, a writing template, so they know exactly what to write, when to write it, and how many words that they need to make it a decent chapter.
I love that. I love that. So, what is something? Is there any other fear that we didn't cover, or we
Yes.
finished?
Nope. There's one more.
Okay,
It's
that's the fifth one.
that's the fifth one. You are afraid of being seen. This is the fear underneath many of the other fears, because when you tell your real story, you're saying, this is me, not the
Yeah.
polished version, not the professional bio, not the Facebook version where everything in the world looks wonderful. It's you. And being seen can feel incredibly vulnerable. What if people judged you? What if they misunderstood you? What if they knew something about you that you've kept private for years? But let me turn that piece around. What if somebody finally sees themselves because you allowed them to see you?
I love that. I love that. So, Peggy Lee, tell a little bit about how people can start. Let's say they are inspired just listening to this conversation, and they decide, okay, maybe I want to, overcome my fears and just literally start thinking about writing the book. What is the first step for them to do?
Well, the first step is, I would say, book a call with me, schedule a call, and they
Yes.
can do that with bookwithpeggylee.com. And
Awesome.
so then we can have a little discussion and talk about your story and whether or not a book is a good idea for you at that particular time.
I love that. I love that. So again, it's just like if something inside of you had this nudge, or something was talking to you saying, okay, maybe this is the time for me to try, reach out to Peggy Lee. There are links in my description. And if you're watching on Peggy Lee, so you already connected with her, uh, make sure click on the link and give yourself permission to connect and start exploring. Thank you so much. Anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up?
No, I do have a free gift right now. So if you go to freechapterwritingguide.com, you can get your own way to learn how to write a chapter.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
start with a chapter. Start writing, what one thing that you would like to write about. So that's freechapterwritingguide.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming today and sharing your wisdom, and telling that we don't have to wait until everything is perfect, that our time is now. We start today, and we are just allowing the universe to show us and guide us. And again, if we have somebody by our side who can explain to us, who can teach us, because again somebody already done what we want to do, so there is no point to do it alone. And just start from today. I love it. Thank you so much, Peggy Lee. And everyone, just if you find it helpful, maybe share with somebody who you know that has the story inside of them and ready to share with the world. And for everybody else, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye now.
All right. Bye. Thank you.